So that was a video of Mr. Suzuki's gardens and some of his work. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Suzuki has a big garden facility up in Nagano Prefecture, which is a bit of a trek from Tokyo, but it's well worth the visit to make the trip up to his garden. And he's always happy to see people, and it is a beautiful place to go. So highly recommended.
今私が住んでいるところは小布施町と言いまして、すごく観光の方もすごく多いところなんです。
So where he lives, a town called Obuse, is it's quite an area that's famous for tourism. A lot of people come up and visit. It's a beautiful area.
夏はちょっと暑いですけど、冬はかなり冷え込みますので、季節の差があるので、盆栽にはすごく適した場所です。
So the summers are hot, but not as hot as other places in Japan. Recently, the temperatures there during the summer have become quite unbearable. But where he is quite ideal for bonsai. The winters do get very cold and there's a lot of snow, but it's kind of an ideal place for growing a lot of trees.
どうして適しているかと言いますと、最近では東京より西側へ行くと、エゾマツとか五葉松が焼けて育たないという状況になります。
So, you know, one of the things that's happened recently in Japan with the rising temperatures during the summer is that a lot of species, for example, commented about the hemlock, Ezo spruce and white pine, they're really suffering in the heat of the summer, and there's a lot of places in Japan now that you just simply cannot grow them.
暑さを抑えるために寒冷車だとかいろんなことをするんですけど、かなり温度が高いものですから、あれだけ暑さに強い黒松も芽が伸びづらくなったりしています。
So there's lots of things that people are trying to do in order to sort of combat that, including a lot of shade cloth across the nurseries. But there's only so much you can do, and the actual kind of the air temperature in Japan is getting so high that it's affecting all the species, and even black pines, for example. It gets so hot that they kind of go into summer dormancy and they stop growing, and so the new shoots don't really extend out as much as they had done previously.
なぜ小布施がちょっと適しているかと言いますと、夜はかなり冷え込みますので、寒暖差があって、五葉松にしろエゾマツ、多少の遮光をしてあげるとすごくよく育ちます。
And so one of the kind of the good points about where he is although that some of the daytime temperatures do reach a similar kind of level to other places in Japan, what happens at night is the temperature drops down. And so because you have that sort of diurnal temperature difference, so it gets cooler in the evening, whereas in Tokyo or Osaka, some of the other places which are concrete jungles, the temperature at night time is essentially the same as it is at daytime. There's no temperature difference. The trees don't grow there, whereas in Nagano, Obuse, where he is, you get that dip in the temperature at night time, so the trees have that kind of rest period.
例えば日本ではカリンなんかにもウイルスが出て暑いところだとそれがなかなか治らなかったりするんですけど、長野に持ってきますとすごく冷え込んだりしますので、それが自然と治ったりしますね。
And so one thing that's happened recently with the Chinese quince species of bonsai, of which there are several examples in the exhibition, there's like a virus, there's a disease that has sort of begun to spread around, particularly in those areas that stay constantly hot. Whereas if you take the trees to where he is, because of that sort of nighttime drop in temperature, the trees are able to kind of recover and heal.
そのくらいちょっと作りやすい場所ですので、そこで私もう40年近くやってますから、いろんな国の方が見に来てくださいます。それなんで、せっかく遠くから来てくださったお客様に最高の思い出とそういうのを作りたいために美術館計画というのを立てております。
So that's one of the reasons why he decided to sort of set up in that area, and he's had his nursery there for a number of years. and a lot of people come from all over Japan. A lot of people come from all over the world to visit, and he is kind of in the process of creating a sort of a museum where he will be able to sort of share the beauty of bonsai with everybody.
この本当に目的は本当にそれぞれの木の一番映える舞台を作ってあげて、そこでその木を飾ることによってその魅力、例えば鉢一つもこの鉢がこういう歴史があってとか、食一つ、それを全部書いて、盆栽好きな方、そうでない方にも見ていただいて、楽しんでいただく空間を作ろうと思っています。
And so what he's looking to do is to try and create a place, a stage where he can show off not just the trees but also pots and stands and things which have a varied history throughout Japan, and to write down the history of those objects and show them off to people from all around the world.
その計画で進めて、本当は今年の5月ぐらいから着工する予定だったんですけど、なんかそういう図面作ったり模型を作ったらいろんな企業の方がうちでやってくれないかとかいろんな話して今ちょっと迷ってるところです。
So his original plan was to start to build it in from sort of May this year. They had the plans all kind of like laid out and architects' drawings and such like. But as news of this sort of spread around, he's had lots of people, various different offers. Why don't we do it here, and why don't we do this instead? And so he's kind of like in a quandary. He doesn't know what to do. There's like too many offers.
どちらにしてもこの秋にはいろいろ決定して、本当に来てくださる方に最高の思い出といろんなことを感じていただく舞台を作りますので、出来上がりましたら遊びに来てください。
But he's going to have something ready and prepared by the autumn of this year, and so for anybody who's kind of like planning a trip over to Japan for Taikan 10, for example, in November, it would be the ideal time to make a visit up to his facility and whatever new museum he's kind of like. He decides upon, and he opens his heart and the doors of his nursery to everybody who wishes to come.
Just to know if the master is considering to put this tree in a semi-cascade pot or on a kurama.
Okay. So the question was, what type of pot is Mr. Suzuki considering, or would it be possible to plant it in a kurama type stone? Do you mean the sort of crescent type?
Yeah, that's it.
すごくいいアイデアだと思います。
That's a very good idea.
どんな形のクラマ石がいいですか？
What type of shape of stone would be good?
Like semi-moon.
いいですね。より荒々しさが出て、すごくいいと思います。
So something with some movement within it as well would be interesting.
そうですね。やってる段階でこの木が一番引き立つようにっていうのはよく考えています。
And so I just asked him if he's actually, when he's approaching like the initial styling of the tree, is the pot selection, the pot choice something that he considers? And he said yes, it's very much part of the fundamental process of getting the most out of the material. So we're really sort of finding that inherent character of the tree, so the character that was within the tree, really bringing that out. Part of the process is the styling, the wiring, placement of the branches, but part of it is also how it will be exhibited.
すごくいい答えだったので、こっちの鉢はどういったのがいいですか？
So continuing on from that, what type of pot selection would be a good idea for this tree? Anybody just shout out? Well, it's a bit interesting.
Lotus.
Lotus.
木工もいいですけど、これだけの弦があるから木工によってこっちに目がいきますので、もうちょっとシンプルな鉢にしてあげるとこれが余計引き立つと思います。
And so the sort of the lotus type shape, or even something like the mokko type, anything that you've got kind of like sort of lots of lines on it can often distract the eye from the character that's within the tree. And so he would go for something a little bit more simple, with sort of straight lines that doesn't kind of distract the eye as much. So he said, well, does anybody have any other suggestions? And I just said, well, you just told him what the idea was.
同じ情報でも色があるんですけど、心拍に合う色ってどんなんですか？
So obviously you've got rectangular pots, but there's lots of variations within them in terms of like the outwardly curving lips, bands, and all sorts of things. But also the colour of the clay. And he asks what colour would be ideal for juniper.
そうですね。赤、コーデっていう鉢があるんですけど、それは本当のいいやつは300年前の鉢ですごくねっとりした色があります。心拍のシャリの白さと水水、そこにコーデの鉢が出るとすごく心拍に合いますね。
And so whoever it was who shouted that red, from this point of view, the red clay pots, known as kode in Japanese, the best pots of those examples are from sort of 300 years ago. The clay for them is quite hard to get. I don't believe it exists anymore. But the best ones were made over 300 years ago, and they have a really, really sort of bright red colour, and they're very, very sort of fine texture. And as they age, they develop a beautiful patina, and they are considered to be the best kind of fit for the junipers, because it really, again, it kind of highlights the difference between the living section and the dead section. That's one of the things that you're always looking to try to do with the deadwoods, with junipers or any tree with deadwoods, is to really highlight the difference between those two things. And anything that you can use to really amplify that difference is always a benefit to the tree.
今、コーデっていう、紅という霊って書くんですけど、鉢の話が出ましたんで、それに匹敵する鉢で、ブデってネズミ色の鉢があるんです。それも300年前のまさに建立年石がその時代の鉢なんですけど、それをこういう木に合わせるとなると、鉢が良すぎて木が負けちゃうというのがあるんですけど、それには木の樹格が上がってからそういう鉢に植える。まあ、言葉悪いですけど、これは紫泥止まりの木だな。これは品格いいから腕が合うな。そういうのがありますね。
So within the sort of the Japanese bonsai aesthetic and their ideas of what's good and what's bad, the pot selection and the choice of colour of the clay also has kind of like an important part to play in there. And he was talking about the kode, the red clay pots, and they are considered to be like the highest quality pots. They're very rare and quite hard to get hold of. And so, if you ever see a tree in one of them, it would always be a tree of that absolute sort of highest quality. Those pots wouldn't be reserved or wouldn't be used for a tree which is not of the highest quality. So There are lots of other different types of clays. There's like the grey clay, which is known as ude, and shide as well, which is a vermilion purple type clay. So those are the kind of the colours that you would see used with trees that are kind of like lower down the divisions in terms of their quality or refinement, things like that.
例えばこの木でしたら赤い鉢がいいんですけど、本当の古い名鉢に植えてもまだ合わない感じがしますね。それはあと時間が解決してくれると思いますね。これが何十年か持ち込むと練れた味になると、高齢だとか腕だとか本物に色が合う木になると思います。
No, so he was sort of saying about, you know, the sort of following on from that idea of the kind of the hierarchy of the pot clay and such like. You know, as the tree kind of matures and develops, you know, it can kind of it would be better fitted to a higher quality pot. And so one of the things you sort of said at the start as well is like if you put, you know, like quite often if you've got this masterpiece pot, this pot with the finest quality, the clay is incredible, the shape is perfect, and it you know, you put any tree in it, quite often the tree will lose out in terms of the, you know, the character of the pot. You know, this tree itself here now is undergoing its sort of first styling, and so if you put it into like a masterpiece pot, you know, the tree would lose out to it. But as the tree kind of grows and matures and starts to take on a higher quality of itself, then it would be more suited for a pot of a similar character. So it looks as though we are reaching the final stages of styling for the Hemlock. So we are reaching the final stages of the Hemlock.
枝を抜いたり角度を変えることによってこの木の特徴が十分引き出したと思うんですよね。あとは本当におっしゃるようにクラマイシとかそういうのをつけたより一層いい木になります。皆さんどうですか
？So through the change of planting angle and the removal of branches and the distribution of those remaining branches, we've managed to really highlight the main character features of this tree, bring its character out to the maximum. And so the next stage obviously would be to plant it potentially in a grabber stone or in a pot. But this initial stage of work is done. So, what do you think?
これで成形は出来上がったんで、鉢を変えるのはちょっと時間を経ってやるんですけど、今度は例えば鉢をクラマイシにしたときに、この間というステージに飾るにはどんなのがいいですか？例えば掛け軸どんなの？
And so obviously this initial starting stage has finished, and if we imagine now the next stage of development of the tree, planting it into something, for example, the kurama stone, and then taking it on to a display stage, so maybe displaying it in a tokonoma, what objects would you use? A scroll, accent plant, stand, etc. How would you best show off the character of this tree? Anybody? Any suggestions? Pardon? A mountain scroll?
いいですね。渓流とかちょっとそういう厳しいところに生えてる姿で、 峠に山であったり、ここに月が出てたり、いろんな景色、これによって自然界が広がる飾りがいいと思います。
And so the suggestion was a scroll with a sort of a mountain image, and thinks that would be a great idea. Clearly, what he's trying to put forward is the idea of the tree growing in a very harsh environment. So having potentially a picture of a mountain, potentially with the moon displayed as well. Just to really kind of highlight the natural environment that this tree would be found in would be something.
何か質問ありますか?
Is there any questions? One of the key things that would be necessary in order to do that on display would be to choose a stand that would enable you to have some space underneath here.
蔵前石がありますから、蔵前石の底はこんなですから、まず、陶器の水盤だと弱く感じるから、銅のできたらマンジスカシみたいな強いのをやって砂を引いて、そこに蔵前石を乗せて、ちょっと高めの色で飾ると、より自然感が出ると思います。
And so, for example, if it was placed into a kurama stone, then it could be positioned into, it could be placed into a doban, a very sort of strong-looking copper basin doban with some sort of decorative motifs around the edges, and then placed on a reasonably high kind of, sort of rectangular table in order to give some space underneath here.
Minimize this.
I'll ask him in a second. He just looked at the picture of the tree and went, "That looks cool." So he's even impressed by his own work.
針金をたくさんかければいいというわけではなくて、できたらかかってるの木は楽ですよね。ですから、どうしても必要なところにポイントだけかけて、針金を少なくして枝を操作するっていうのがまた一つのテクニックです。
So what was mentioned, the question about how little wire had been used, but yet such a good final result had been achieved. And Mr. Suzuki mentioned this yesterday, and this is something that both he and his master and the people within the family, the sort of same family, sort of pride themselves on, is using as little wire as possible to achieve a beautiful result. It's not simply a case of wiring absolutely everything and positioning it perfectly. It's about using as little wire as possible to get the same kind of effect.
どうしても成り立ての弟子の子は針金が多くなるんですね。どうしても全部を動かさなきゃいけないんですけど、この子たちぐらいになると少ない針金で本体を動かしながら他も動かしてしまうから、本当に少なくて効率よくかけるようになります。
So when you're initially sort of starting off your apprenticeship or starting off your bonsai learning, you feel like you have to wire everything in order to be able to sort of position it. But as you develop and as you become more professional and have more experience, you realise that you don't need to wire everything, and a lot can be achieved by just one sort of single wire and then bending it and placing the branches in such a way the secondary branches kind of naturally grow off and fill in those spaces. And most of this, the result of this actually comes from pruning. Most of the professional nurseries with lots of apprentices and things like that. The master does the pruning, so the tree comes in front of the master will consider it, as Mr. Suzuki did it to begin with. He looks at it, he decides on what the styling of the tree is going to be and which branches are to be used, and he does the pruning. Once the pruning has been done and the branches have been selected, the tree then gets passed on to the apprentices for the wiring, which tells you what? Tells you that the pruning is the important work. The branch selection and the pruning is the key thing. The application of wire to the branches is a mechanical process that a monkey could learn if you trained it well enough. Okay, and so that's why it's given to the apprentices. And as the apprentices are applying the wire, they are looking at the branching structure. They should be looking at the branching structure and looking at what branches the master has left, so they can learn how to prune it properly. And through correct application of the wire and then positioning those branches, because it's been pruned correctly, the foliage pads should be very easy to create.
木に負担をかけなくて、後で外しやすいっていうのもありますけど、これ最近銅が高いからね。
So there's a lot of reasons for trying to minimize the amount of wire that gets put onto a tree. Okay, one of the reasons is the speed of application. Okay, so it's a lot quicker to do it. It looks a lot neater. But the most important thing is that it causes less damage to the tree when it's being applied, and then also when it's being removed. Okay, it's very important to remove the wire before it starts to dig in. But Mr. Suzuki said the key point for using as little wire as possible at the moment is that the copper is very expensive. He said, I'm only joking, obviously.
なんか話してる間に終わりましたので、どうぞ正面を見てください。
So we have, throughout talking, we have finished this tree. Please look at the front.
枝を抜いて、針金で枝を操作することによっていいところがみんな見えてきましたので、これで本当にこのいい木のところを引き出した。あとは時間で目摘みをして葉の充実を図るとより一層いい木になると思います。
So through the change of angle, through the removal of branches, as was discussed earlier in the demonstration, all of the good features of the tree have been exposed, as in all of the dead wood, all of the severe characteristics of the tree have been exposed, and the branches, through manipulating them up and down, left and right, have been positioned in spaces so as to highlight that as well. And now, as the tree matures over time through growing it out, pruning it back a little bit, building up the volume of the pads and the age of the foliage pads, this tree is going to have a good future. The skeleton structure has been put in place, and it's now just a question of kind of keep maintaining that same sort of shape and structure, but adding volume to the foliage pads, adding age to the foliage pads, and allowing the tree to mature.
これでさっきお話した鉢を変えるんですけど、工程の時代のあるちょっとしたのに入れて、この向こうの飾りとはちょっとまた違う風に飾りたいものですから、掛け軸はどんなのがいいですか？
So imagine that we've put it into a slightly better quality pot and it's matured a little bit, it's ready for display. Think about how to have a different type of display. What type of scroll would you use, accent font, in order to try and create a different kind of feel? Anybody? The dragon.
Oh,
So the suggestion was a dragon.
すごく良くて、心拍はこれだけの動きがありますので、よく竜に例えられるんですよね。例えばこれでしたら、これから登る、手に登る、日本語で昇竜、登る竜というので、おっしゃるように、いかにも竜っていう章もいいですけど、そうですね、例えば厳しい月が出てて、そこにすごい厳しい雲があるような木でやると、これを竜に見立ててそこに舞い上がる。そんなの素敵だと思います。
And so the idea of kind of like the dragon is kind of a good one, but really the juniper itself is often considered to look like a dragon. One of the reasons why they're so highly prized within the bonsai community is that they have this mythical, like dragon-like movement within them. We can imagine that this being the body of a dragon, sort of twisting, the live vein, the deadwood, the way it kind of intertwines. It's almost like a dragon itself rising up through the clouds. That's one of the kind of the fundamental kind of images of junipers, and there are many sort of famous masterpiece junipers that have the name dragon within them, and so trying to kind of create that image, to replicate it with the image of a dragon on a scroll would be kind of like would be doubling down on that, but to have but to have can wait for later. But to have, say, the image of clouds or a severe moon as a scroll, that would be the area that the dragon is sort of looking to fly up through. Would be a great way of kind of really visualizing, allowing the viewer to sort of to see that dragon-like nature. Does anybody have any questions about the two trees? Or anything at all? Yes. Sorry, I can't put that thing. For repotting?
Kometsuがなんかはちょっと目出しの目が光り出した頃がすごく最適ですね。
So the question was about the ideal period for repotting as spruce, hemlock and that sort of thing, as opposed to junipers. Yes, correct. And the ideal time for the ideal time for doing hemlock is just as the buds are beginning to swell and sort of show movement within them. That's kind of the ideal time for doing that.
心拍は基本的に、いつでも大丈夫なんですけど、3月にやるととやっていまして、新葉と古っ葉がすごくはっきり分かれて赤い葉っぱがいっぱい出ますので、長野ですと6月にやるととやって古っ葉が出づらいのと、あと線虫が入りづらいですね。線虫って水水に入ってヤニが上がってると卵を潰してくれて自然に殺すんですけど、春にそれを植え替えて根を切ると水水が食われやすいんですよね。ですから一番いいのはうちは6月にやってます。
So with junipers, I mean, fundamentally, they're a species that you can pretty much do at any time of year, but the ideal time depends pretty much on your location. And so for Mr. Suzuki in Nagano, like if you do it in this sort of time of year, March, then quite often what you'll find with a lot of the junipers is they go brown during the winter, and it's very difficult to see kind of like the new growth and the older growth as well. Where it's sort of very healthy and very the new shoots are starting to come through, and so if anything goes wrong, then it's very difficult to kind of know what to do. So really, he wants to wait until he can see that big difference between the new growing shoots that we see, okay, and the older foliage, and that generally will happen in June. He tends to repot his junipers in June. There is also, he has issues with insects and things that can kind of get in and damage the live vein, but that's not something really that we have to worry about too much. But really, it's repotting junipers can be done pretty much any time of the year, but the best time to do it is when you can really sort of start to see the growing tips begin to kind of like show themselves. That's the safest time to do it.
今時計を見ましたらまだ2時間経ってないので4時間やらなきゃいけないからもうちょっと外してやりたいという。
So he's just had a look at the clock and we finished earlier than scheduled. So he's asked everyone, do you want me to take the wire off and do it again?
この人たちには悪いけど。
So he says it might be bad for the apprentices, but he doesn't care really. Is that okay for everybody?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dankeschön.
ありがとうございました。